Zina Brown is the writer and director of the Faerie Rings, an upcoming narrative feature film about the promise of visionary plant medicines and the cruelty of those who would outlaw them. Zina's unique visual and narrative style has been awarded in film festivals across the world, including the Barcelona International Environmental Film Festival, Kiev Film Festival in Ukraine, Mexico City International Film Festival, Amsterdam International Film Festival, San Antonio Film Festival, and the Woods Hole Film Festival. He has over 25 years of writing and directing experience, including numerous music videos and festival favorite short films. His short film, Dreams of the Last Butterflies, was screened at 50 film festivals in 13 countries, as well as winning many awards. And the McKenna Academy audience is pleased to welcome Zina to the Brainforest Cafe.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It is such an honor and a pleasure and an absolute delight to be here. Thank you so kindly.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I've been reading about your film and looking at some of the clips and so on, so
Mhm.
I'll just let you take it away. What inspired you to make this film? And
Yeah,
it's been a
absolutely.
journey getting there.
Yeah. So the Fairy Rings, just to start, it's a narrative feature film. And really what it is, Dennis, is it's an analogy, it's a fairy tale analogy about the war on drugs. And I kind of like to describe it as a cross between Alice in Wonderland and George Orwell's 1984. So it kind of has both those like fantasy and dystopian elements, but really at its core, it's a story about the healing power and potential about plant and fungal medicines and the injustice of them being criminalized. You know, part of the inspiration for the story is I found that there's so many amazing documentaries being made right now in this space about about the subject, but not a lot of narrative stories. And documentary stories are great, but they have a limited audience.
Right.
Sometimes they can be very cerebral, which is fine. But I wanted to create something as a storyteller that would really resonate with people's hearts, and as a feature film with a sizable budget could actually potentially reach millions of people with this message. Um, would you like me to give you a short little synopsis of the story?
Please.
Okay. So the Fairy Rings takes place in Wardenica, which is kind of like an alternate, even more dystopian version of America slightly in the future. And it's controlled by the truth setters, which are three rulers whose words all must obey. And they're the lawmaker, the wayshower, and the light giver. And they kind of represent the evil archetypes of politics and religion and media. And they control everything. They have their boot on the neck of all the commoners in Wardenica. They have all the resources. They have everything. Now, living in Wardenica is Simon, who's our main hero of the story. And he's a disillusioned young artist, struggles with a lot of mental health issues. He and his rebellious friends they just want a way out. They just want some relief to their suffering. And they hear about the fairy rings, these magical circles of mushrooms that go far out deep in the forest, that legend has it if you step inside one, you're transported to the fairy realms. Now, the truth setters hate the fairy rings because it's something they can't control. So they demonize and destroy them wherever they found. They plaster Wardenica with propaganda. Trust the truth setters, report a ring. But Simon and his friends aren't discouraged. And they need something. So they go searching out in the forest for the very last fairy ring. And Simon does find one. He runs around it 9 times because that's what you need to do, steps inside, and is transported to the fairy realm, where he meets Carathlodai, the fairy guide, who's a very gnome-like, wise character who then takes him to the fairy realm, explains the ways and means of this place, and then introduces him or takes him to meet the cannabis fairy and the mushroom fairies and the ayahuasca fairies. And these are not Disney fairies. These are fairies with some bite, like old-time fairies. And each one of these fairies presents Simon with a test that he must pass. And in doing so, he learns a lesson that helps him to learn how to heal himself, how to heal his world, and ultimately how to defeat the truth setters from their tyranny. So that's kind of the basic of the story.
Sounds like a great plot.
Mhm.
It's germane to so many issues these days. I mean,
Mhm.
the authoritarian world that you describe is uncomfortably close to the one that we inhabit these days. And, there is definitely uh, this film should resonate with a lot of people because we are living in these dark times now where all kinds of things are suppressed. Free thinking is suppressed. You mentioned in your email cognitive liberty. Cognitive liberty is under attack. The war on drugs, the point has been made. The war on drugs is really the war on consciousness,
Mhm.
and we're approaching a place, not approaching, we're actually in a place where certain states of mind are prohibited because that's what the war on drugs really is.
Mhm.
I mean, Terence used to say it's not that psychedelics are very dangerous because they give you dangerous ideas.
Exactly. Mhm.
It's not that the medicines themselves are dangerous, but they definitely give you dangerous ideas. And our culture today, particularly in the United States, unfortunately, is afraid of ideas. And there's very much this effort to co-opt the media, to co-opt all the structures of society in service of this false narrative and this very dark and authoritarian perspective. And clearly, I think those who have had experiences with plant medicines or mushroom medicines, that
Mhm.
we'll call them plants for the moment, but those who have had those experiences realize that they are catalysts for pushing back against this. They are, in this context, they are inherently very subversive because they're a way to fight back, because they change hearts and minds. They can change
Mhm.
people's minds and they can
Mhm.
wake people up. And
Mhm.
uh, and they're doing that. The question is, are they doing it fast enough? Are they doing it effectively enough? But
Yeah, well,
films like yours may
yeah.
may be part of that.
Well, that's why I feel this great urgency around this message. You wake up every day and it's just like this deluge of bad news. It's just like it's unescapable every single day. It's just like something else is happening. You're like, I can't even believe that this is going on right now. Like, what sort of a horrible Twilight Zone reality am I living in that this continues to happen, you know? And I I have a 21-year-old son, and I really am very present with how he is viewing the world as well, and, how I can see the world through his eyes, and the mental state of young people these days is not good. All the news, the social media, the smartphones, everything is just like it's just like this dark tide that's just like rising and rising and rising and seems to be unescapable for so many people. And that's why I find that the beautiful message of the plant medicines can be so helpful because like you said, not only does it help you to question all of those things, to question the authority, but like Terence used to say, it's about dissolving boundaries as well, and helping us to see that like, people that who aren't you aren't necessarily the enemy just because they have different points of view, and that's what's being pounded into our head every single day now, you
Right.
know? Yeah, so
Well, the film pushes back against that. I mean, and also I think there's a strong environmental message in the film as well. And one of the things that's going on now is, we have these conversations all the time, but the culture is so estranged from nature, and this is far, you know, it's suffering from this divorce,
Mhm.
essentially this estrangement from nature for many decades. It's not just the current regime or the current time. This is the outcome, I believe, of 2,000 years of Judeo-Christian tradition in which nature is devalued and biology is prohibited. I mean, all this controversy, for example, around abortion and things like that. I mean, and the attitudes of Christianity towards sexuality in general. This evinces basically a denial of biology. We
Mhm.
are biological beings, and we
Absolutely.
like it or not, we have to deal with all the problems and all the challenges of being biological beings, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And, but all the joy and wonder of it too. Uh, I'm dismayed that at this this separation from nature,
Mhm.
and the tendency globally, almost as a reaction, to retreat into these artificial virtual worlds,
Oh, I know.
which
Mhm.
are now, which now are largely cesspools. They've been poisoned. I can sympathize with your son. I mean, that to be a young person these days and dealing with this must be very difficult.
Absolutely, absolutely, and, part of my inspiration for also this project was, you know, I've been working with mushrooms personally for over 30 years now and ayahuasca for over 10 years. And really part of the inspiration was just to give back to them too. It's like the gifts that I've been given in my life are innumerable, like you said, that connection to nature, that understanding of that that we're all one, as simple as that. That's the easiest way to say it. Has been so profound in my life and helped me to help inspire all of my storytelling. And I look at someone like my son and who sees this world being torn apart by so many things, and I mean, just the issue of climate change alone is so massive and huge. But all we can really do is do what we can do as individuals, and I feel like that's where work with the plant and the fungus medicines can really help so much to reconnect us to that natural world. And for people like I live in New York City, so many people are completely disconnected from nature here. But
Right.
that gives a chance to do that, even from a yoga studio in Brooklyn sometimes, it can do the trick.
Right, right. Yeah, well, these plant medicines, I think of them as coevolutionary catalysts, if
Mhm.
you would recognize that. They are partners and they can open our eyes to nature,
Mhm.
and that's what they do. I sometimes say what psychedelics do is they bring the background forward.
Mm.
In a natural environment, the background is always there, but we're so programmed to suppress all that that we rarely perceive it. And so we have to, because we are so estranged, we have to invoke almost desperate measures to
Mhm.
make that connection. Not everyone has to do that, but the plant medicines are kind of, a way of forcing the issue. They are
Mhm.
scary in a certain way
Mhm.
because you have to surrender to them,
Mhm.
and you have to open yourself up to this other world, this other way of perceiving. You
Mhm.
have to put down your phones and put down all your devices. Just open your eyes, go into nature. Nature is the ultimate teacher, and
Mhm.
nature has a lot to teach us, virtually everything, and we are now not only not listening, but in the current geopolitical or political environment, we're actually nature is being perceived as the enemy. You know, I cannot believe that the energy policy in the States is basically drill, baby, drill,
It's
I
insane.
mean, it's a deliberate
Insane.
effort being made to wreck nature as if it
Mhm.
wasn't already wounded enough.
I know.
So we have to cope with that somehow. Um, I think your son is perhaps lucky to have a father like you.
Thank you.
Is
I
he
try.
is he coping? How is he coping with
Yeah, he does, I don't think he would mind me saying that he has started to work with mushrooms a little bit, and that has been helpful for him. But really, it's a day-to-day struggle for him and so many of, the young his friends and everything like that, And it's it's a day by day thing, It's like you move from one step forward, sometimes it's two steps back with all of the challenges of just dealing with the information in the world and just trying to keep that spark of hope alive can be very challenging, you know? And that relates back to my story. The young person, the hero, Simon in my story is, he has suicidal ideation, he's in a really tough spot in Wardenica. Like it's a fun, entertaining story, but it's got very serious themes as well. And it's not until he has the courage to step inside the ring for himself, even though it's completely unknown. He doesn't know what is going to be in that ring. If it's a nightmare, if it's monsters that are going to rip him apart, he has to have the courage to do that. And I feel like that in and of itself with the psychedelic experience is such a big part of it that's often kind of overlooked. It's not just about the healing, but it's about having the courage, the balls to do that in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to step you have to go beyond the chrysanthemum.
Yes.
And the psychedelic experience, the fairy ring is the perfect analogy to that because you are stepping into a realm of experience where you don't know what's on the other side. And
Mhm.
what's on the other side could be quite terrifying. Often it is quite terrifying.
Mhm.
And balanced against that, it's also quite wonderful,
Mhm.
make the discoveries. So, but you have to have, it's all about courage and it's all about pushing, sort of putting your assumptions to the side and having the courage to step into that fairy ring or to take
Mhm.
those mushrooms or whatever it takes. And then you realize a whole bunch of things. A
Absolutely.
lot of what you realize is how little we understand
Yeah,
reality,
and and the deeper you go, the deeper it gets
the
also.
deeper you go, the deeper it gets. That's
Yeah,
absolutely right.
another part of the inspiration, Dennis, for the story was me not I'm sure I'm not the first person to notice the overlap between the traditional fairy experience and the psychedelic experience, and I actually did a lot of research on traditional, especially Celtic fairy tales for this story, and that's all woven into the story as well, like walking around it 9 times, for example.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of interplay between how the fairies in those old stories react and how the plant medicines in our world interact can be very similar too. Sometimes they're just like bright, sparkly rainbow wings of joy, and other times are "Ah!" they sink their teeth right into you, and there's no escape. So that's part of the fun of the story, I think, too, and also something that is going to really resonate with people, I think.
I have no doubt that it will, and I hope you can get it out to the right audience. Uh, well, we know what the audience is. I'm sure the film will get out to them. Uh, so
Yeah. Do you want me to kind of tell you where we're at with the film right now?
tell
Yeah.
tell me about it.
Yeah, so right now, the film is not yet made, just to make that clear to everyone. We're
Right.
currently in the
We
stage of
understand
where
that, although the screenplay has already won numerous awards, right?
yeah, well, that's one thing I wanted to touch on. So, I wrote the screenplay a few years ago, and my producer encouraged me to, send it out to film festivals. People may not be aware, but a lot of film festivals around the world also have a screenplay competition for films that aren't yet made.
Mhm.
So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so I sent it out to a lot of film festivals, and the response was, overwhelmingly positive. At this point, we won, 17, awards internationally. We got into over 50 film festivals with it. We won, screenplay awards in Amsterdam and Mexico City. Kyiv in Ukraine gave us an award during the war at the Kyiv Film Festival, which was probably the most touching award I got. Paris, Tokyo, a whole bunch of US cities, and I really think, Dennis, that, a lot of these people reading this are not necessarily psychedelic people, but at its heart, at its core, the story is really about resisting tyranny, which is the message that I think most of all is resonating with people as well. And you know, I'm not hitting people over the head with the message about psychedelics in the movie either. Like it's a subtle message. It's definitely in there. But first and foremost, I wanted to make it entertaining and thought provoking. Um, so the other really good thing we have is my producer, Gavin Berman, is a 30-year Hollywood veteran, and he's also a psychedelic person, really, really believes in the message. He's just coming off of co-producing Stranger Things season 5.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He spent a year and a half in Atlanta doing Stranger Things. So, he also co-produced Amazon's Jack Ryan series, Escape at Dannemora, the really critically acclaimed Showtime show with Benicio del Toro. He was production supervisor on Blade Runner 2049 with Harrison Ford. So he's at the top tier of being able to make these kind of things happen. So really, we have what we need. We have access to possibly even A-list actors. We just need the money to do it. So that's why we're trying to get the word out.
Are these awards at film festivals and this gentleman's involvement and his track record, is that translating into support for this film?
Yeah,
Financial support?
we have not yet found an investors to fully fund the film yet, but support absolutely. I was recently, as you know, at Psychedelic Science, and we actually had at the MAPS conference in Denver recently, and we had an exhibitor's booth there for the film. We have a lot of concept art already made, really amazing art that we had all over our booth, and a lot of people came through. And Dennis, the response was just so overwhelmingly positive. People were so excited about what we were doing. They would walk in and just be like almost overwhelmed by the little world we had created in our booth there with all the fairies and the cannabis fairy and everything like that.
Right.
Because I think that we're doing something that's really unique and really outside of the box, and I think people really resonate with that. So just that alone makes me, it really left me with a feeling of like, if we can get this made, it's going to really hit a home. It's going to be a home run with people. People are going to love this film. If they're fans of Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or Hunger Games or a million other fantasy things, they're going to love this. So uh, I just wanted to mention one other thing too.
And
As you may have seen, we actually created a real cannabis fairy already. My wonderful partner, Madeline Bell, is a performer and an amazing costume designer, and we actually created a live cannabis fairy that she performed in. She made all of these incredible green silk cannabis leaves interwoven with gold thread that she arranged all over herself with like big fairy wings made of cannabis leaves. It's just a 90-second teaser, but it really hits hard.
I just watched that clip before we came on.
Oh, great.
Like to run that clip?
Are you able to there?
I think I can, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you scroll down, I don't know if you'll be able to make it full screen, but maybe. That's cool. This is our website, everyone. For those of you watching this, for those of you not watching, I'll spell it out for you. It's the faerierings.com, but it's the old-timey spelling of fairy. So it's TheFaerieRing. So TheFaerieRing, thefaerierings.com.
Okay, I don't see the link here. Let me see
If you have the email I sent you recently with the materials. Ah, there you go. So if you can make that full screen there next to where it says
if I can.
Vimeo on the right.
I'll do that.
Oh, cool.
This is pretty amazing. I was
Thank you. So this is, everyone, this is not AI. This is, just so you know, because it's so good, people have thought that it was AI, and this is an actual video of a real cannabis fairy. So of course you can see her smoking the cannabis, and in the
costumes alone are worth
Mhm.
Academy
and
Award. This is rather amazing.
Thank you. And just so you know, we're intending to do almost all of this with like practical costumes. Like we're going to try to stay away from using too much CG. I grew up in the 80s of 80s movies with Legend and Time Bandits and Dark Crystal and all those fun movies that really had really cool costumes in them. So for all of the fairies in the movie, I really want to make really amazing costumes for all of them and have actual real performers in the costumes, just because I feel like the emotion really.
Good, you're using live actors, not AI avatars. That's well of you.
Thank you very much. It's also just way more fun to work with real people than ones and zeros.
So you're having a lot of fun with this, but but actually, this is a very important message
Mhm,
that you're trying to convey through the film. Not only the authoritarian suppression of free thought, but
mm,
also the environmental message. I mean,
mhm,
this is, I think, not enough is said. In fact, not enough even can be said about the threat of climate change
mhm,
and what we are doing to the planet. You know,
mhm,
that is the major existential threat to our
mhm,
existence, our continued
mhm,
existence. It's not
mhm,
AI, as some
mhm,
people say, although AI may accelerate that in
mhm,
the sense that AI environmentally is a complete disaster based on the the electricity and other resources that you have to consume. I'm
mhm,
becoming quickly a rather negative my perspective on AI is getting more and more negative every day the
mhm,
more I hear
mhm,
about it. I feel like in
mhm,
some ways it represents an outsourcing of our spirit
mhm,
into machinery and algorithms and all that, which are not equivalent. Algorithms do not have a spirit.
mhm,
And yet there's this seductive tendency to attribute that kind of agency to these artificial creations. I mean, that's a little bit off track. That's probably quite a bit
yeah.
off track.
No, but that
Problem is
seductive
that what's
quality.
being ignored
Mhm,
is the real threat to the planet. And now in
mhm,
public policy, it's barely on the table for discussion.
mhm, yeah.
And yet we can turn on the TV and we could see the effects of it every day,
Mhm,
the effects of climate change. So I don't know, Zina. I think we're becoming, as a species, at least as a
mhm.
society, we're becoming a little psychotic here.
I completely agree. But here's what gives me hope, Dennis. I come back to this again and again, and in the story, in the Fairy Rings, the true setters they're cutting down all of the forests of Ordenica to build their cities, and that's what drives the commoners further and further into the forest, and that's why there's only one fairy ring left, is because that they've cut down all of the trees. And Caraphilidae, the fairy guide, is actually his other name is the keeper of the doors, because it goes two ways. Like, humans have to be able to go into the fairy realm, but more importantly, fairies still have to be able to get to our realm too, to bring us the magic that we need. Because without that magic, without the magic of nature, we are lost. We are lost in a maze of concrete and wiring, and that's another really important part of the message of the fairy rings. Um, for me personally, if I could just share, one of my another reason I'm really connected to these plant medicines. Um, so I have two stories for you, Dennis. The first is about mushrooms.
Okay.
So I'm 16 years old. I'm living in a little town in Minnesota. It's the middle of winter, and at this point in my life, I've never had a drink of alcohol. I've never smoked a joint. I've never had a cigarette. Nothing. And I'm I'm a painfully shy, teenager. I just cannot speak when I'm in a group of any amount of more than one person. I have a couple of close friends, but otherwise, I'm I'm tortured by this lack of being able to speak when I'm in a public setting. And my friends happen to be friends with some older friends who supplied them with some mushrooms. And my own natural curiosity, when they started telling me about this experience they had had, I was all for it. I was like, "That sounds great. You eat a mushroom, you have visions? That sounds cool. I'm in." And, one really cold winter's night, a friend and I went out. We ate the mushrooms, we walked out to the edge of town, and, it was a moonless night, big bright stars. And at the edge of our town, there was a big sledding hill that all the kids used, really big, and a field at the bottom of the hill, and then a forest behind it. And we're walking, we're talking, we get up to the top of the hill, and I'm starting to feel something for the first time in my life, a sensation that's not sobriety. And I get really excited, and I take a step onto the hill, and what I didn't realize is it had rained that day, and so the entire hill was literally just solid ice. at the time I was wearing combat boots with no treads on them, and I started sliding
Oh,
on my feet down the hill like I was surfing on the soles of my feet, going faster and faster and faster, sliding down the hill. And then I hit the bottom, whack, tumbled 4 times, and then sprang up on my feet. And in that moment, Dennis, I looked up and all of the stars in the sky shot out rays of light onto the forest in front of me and illuminated the entire forest in starlight. At 16 years old, that was the moment that mushrooms claimed me.
that's an incredible story.
Yeah,
Incredible. Do you mind telling me where that was in Minnesota?
Northfield, Minnesota.
Which what
Northfield, Minnesota. Northfield, Minnesota. At the time, I think it was about a town of 12,000 people. It's where I went to high school. Um, but the amazing thing about that, Dennis, is, I, of course, was completely taken by them at that point and tried to do them as often as I could. But they helped to give me a confidence that I had never had before that, to really believe in myself. If I can do this thing, if I can have the courage to do this, like I can have the courage to talk to these, jocks at my school or whoever it was, and it took a while, but over the course of a couple of years of working with these medicines, and I really began to understand that, I had something to say.
Mhm.
And, and that's why I've been working with them for 30 years at this point, because no matter how many times I go back to mushrooms, they always have a new lesson for me. There's always a new way for them to help in my life,
Right,
you know?
right,
And that's part of the amazing magic of them. Like I said, the deeper you go, the deeper it gets.
right. Well, one thing you do learn from psychedelics is they make you aware of the limitations of what we think we know. I mean, what
Mhm.
everything you thought you know just gets shattered,
Mhm.
and that's a necessary step in order to appreciate to help you appreciate uh, that we may think we have the world figured out,
Mhm.
but actually we only understand a tiny fraction of what reality actually is. And even
Mhm.
that is a provisional understanding. I
Absolutely.
mean, you can't be certain of anything, and I don't I view that as a good thing because
Mm,
it keeps
mhm.
you humble and it keeps you asking questions.
Mm,
And I think
mm,
that's one thing that psychedelics are very helpful with because they bring that front and center. If I had to encapsulate the message that I get from ayahuasca
mhm.
primarily, but also mushrooms in many contexts, it always reminds me, remember how little you know.
Oh, so
You know?
true.
And
So
the other
true.
side of that coin is remember how much there is left to learn.
Mhm.
And that's the joyful part of it, that we
Absolutely.
don't know. Nobody knows what the hell is going on,
Mhm.
but we're open to learning. I'm come to think, we're not really in search of the answer. I don't know if there
Mhm.
is an answer. The point is the
Mhm.
journey.
The point is the
The
journey.
journey of
Mhm.
curiosity and trying to
Mhm.
open ourselves up to the fact that the world is astonishing, and psychedelics put that right in front of us, it cannot be denied. So, in that sense, they are cognitive catalysts.
Mhm.
They're the best teachers that one can have, and, of course, indigenous people call these plant teachers. It's not for nothing, you know?
Mhm.
Any things can be teachers. It doesn't have to be people, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
So true. Since you mentioned curiosity, I wanted to give you so Carathlidai in the story speaks mostly in rhyme. And when he meets Simon for the first time, he asks him his intention of being in the fairy realm. And Simon says he's curious. And Carathlidai replies, "There's a lock on everything that you can know or see. How do you open them? Curiosity is the key."
right, right, very good. Well, I,
Got a lot of that in there.
I I hope this film gets out. When do you think it will launch, or what do you got a
Well, we
realistic
need to
time?
find some investors first. So once we have the money, we have everything we need. So it's just a matter of, letting the universe, open the doors that need to be open for this. We do have a couple of irons in the fire right now. So,
Okay.
nothing 100% yet.
Right. Uh,
Yeah.
well, hopefully, people listening to this podcast will get the message. They'll get the message. Whether that
Mhm.
translates into support for your film, I don't know, but I certainly hope so.
Thank you so much.
I think it's a great story, and it needs to be told, and uh, telling it as a narrative like this, creating effectively, a post psychedelic, post technological fairy story
Mhm.
is really important because
Mhm.
myth is important
Yes. Yes,
culturally speaking,
exactly.
and in some sense, all myths have a certain truth to them.
Mhm.
The way for a culture to express its sort of collective wisdom through myth and storytelling. This is not the first time that you've done this. I mean, tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about The Last Butterfly. What that's
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Dreams of the Last Butterflies was a short film that I did, which also did very well. I got into, as you mentioned, 50 film festivals across the world. It's a short film. It's only 9 minutes long. Um, and if anyone out there would like to watch it, there's a link right at the top to this film on my Faerie Rings website. Um, as we were talking about, part of having a relationship with the plant medicines is being opened up to the plight of the natural world and all the fucking horrible shit that's going on out there. Um, I've always been amazed by the message of butterflies in their metamorphosis, in their transformation, and how they can literally change into goo from a caterpillar and reform into this beautiful creature, which is still somehow the same creature, even though it's completely different. And using that as a metaphor for how we need to change as a species. And so I created a little short fantasy fairy tale about the last butterfly queens. And again, we had all performers, and we built these amazing, beautiful, photorealistic, gigantic butterfly wings for these beautiful dancers to perform in. And the whole story is really about how the magical power of butterflies is they can, if there is a great need, they can actually enter human dreams and help humans to understand them in dreams. So the short tale is basically about how each of the butterfly queens enters the human dreams and imaginations to help them understand that their world is being taken away from them. It's really a story about how butterflies are endangered and we need to do something about them or there won't be any left. Like it's really, really bad with the butterflies.
yes.
And each one of the butterfly queens represents an actual endangered butterfly from around the world. It's a really beautiful story. It won a lot of awards. So if you're interested, please go watch it on the website.
Yeah, I would love to send us the link, and we'll put that
Oh,
on the
perfect.
podcast site as well. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people would resonate with that. I do think you made an important point. One of the things that is amazing and probably unique to Lepidoptera, butterflies, and moths is this process of metamorphosis.
Mhm.
And it very much does they speak, I think, to the human condition. In some ways, we are a larval species.
Mhm.
We need to undergo that metamorphosis some way and become fully conscious and fully human. And but people, seem to have forgotten that or something, or losing touch with this. So these natural catalysts, I mean, it comes back to uh there are many things. I mean, it talks for one, it speaks to the fact that nature is permeated with intelligence.
Oh, yes, it is.
If we can only open our eyes to see it, because it's
Mhm.
not what we think of as intelligence, but it's there. It's built into the very structure of reality, and particularly biological
Yeah. If I
reality.
could just
So
share another short story about my experience with ayahuasca, since you mentioned that plant intelligence. Um, so I was actually born with a chronic immune deficiency, and called CVID, and I have a fraction of the amount of white blood cells as normal people. And as a child growing up, I was really sick all the time, hospitalized with pneumonia, and was basically a constant battle for most of my life. I ended up getting uh, uh, a white blood cell infusion, which I get every 4 weeks now, and it's been a challenge my whole life, like a real challenge to stay healthy.
Yeah.
When I started hearing about, these amazing miraculous healing powers of ayahuasca, I'd already had all this long experience with other psychedelics. And I really began to wonder, like, is there something that, the medicine might be able to help me with this thing that's been going on my whole life? And it took me a while to make the right connections, to figure out the best place to go and all that. And didn't I didn't have that as my intention right away. I wanted to see, kind of get familiar with the landscape of that particular plan. But right away, I really felt like you were saying that there was an intelligence there, a consciousness there that was outside of my own, 100%. And so finally, I guess I had the courage to ask the medicine about my blood, like what can we, just to see this. And I had this really incredible moment, Dennis, of it felt like the medicine, it felt like she came into my body and, like, scanned me, scanned my immune system, scanned my blood, and the message I got was simply like, "There's nothing wrong with you. This is who you are. This is who you're meant to be." And it was like a revelation to me just to have that sudden, deep understanding that all of the trials and tribulations that I've gone through were for a reason. They were to help make me who I am today, to help give me the strength and the wisdom and the courage of having gone through all that to do the things that I need to do right now. And for the first time in my life, I really accepted that and understood that this was just something that I can have as a part of my life, as a part of my story.
Right.
And
Right.
realizing that, yeah, that not only is, healing is not always about physical healing. Sometimes it's just about accepting the things you can't change. And that was such a beautiful lesson for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your experience is very similar to many people, particularly
Mhm.
with ayahuasca. I mean, the whole body scan, it's really the whole body mind scan, that experience can afford. It manifests itself in different ways. But so
Mhm.
this experience, did it change your condition, or did it just lead you to understand that this is your condition? You have
Yeah,
to live with it.
exactly. It
There
did
are
because it was something that
plants
I
and
always. Mm.
mushrooms, that will stimulate the immune system. You're probably
Oh,
aware of all
oh
that.
yeah, I'm in such a better
Take
place than
all
I
those
am.
things, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have I'm friends with all the mushrooms, not just the psychedelic ones, and they help me considerably. But it was really that, it's something that I'd always kind of been fighting with in my mind my whole life. And just to have that different perspective has just enabled me to just have so much more of a healthy relationship with my own understanding of my own health and my own body, which has enabled me to be like, I'm just gonna do everything I can. I'm gonna live my life each day. I'm gonna make this damn movie. I'm gonna do everything I can. This is not gonna hold me back. This is not gonna stop me. So it was a really important lesson for me.
Right. Yes, I imagine so. Well, fortunately, this is another place where, we can be grateful for high-tech medicine in a certain way, because there are ways that can mitigate it, if not cure it,
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
very good. I mean, you seem like a very together, focused, vibrant person.
Thank you.
May I ask how old you are?
50.
Oh, man, you're at the top of your game.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm
People often act
25
surprised at
years
that.
past that. I'm not at the top of my game anymore.
I don't know, Dennis. You're pretty spry.
No, you might think so, but 50 is a great age. I mean, you're old enough to have acquired a bit of wisdom, and you still have
Mhm,
the energy of youth, and,
mhm,
and then a lot of it is mindset and
mhm,
curiosity, and,
mhm.
I mean, I'm sure you do too. I mean, you don't age has nothing to do with it. Age is about keeping your mind alive,
Absolutely.
and that can happen at any age. I know 90-year-olds who are,
Mhm.
completely on top of it cognitively, and
Mhm,
they're
mhm,
like little kids,
mhm,
and I think that, that has that's a great deal. If you talk to accomplished scientists and people that have studied nature, people like Carl Sagan, for
Mhm.
example,
Mhm.
uh, they're driven by their attitude toward nature. They have the curiosity of children,
Mhm.
and I think children are open to many things.
Mhm.
I think children and indigenous people have a very different way of
Mhm.
viewing nature than we do because
Mhm.
they're not encumbered by literacy,
Mhm.
which can be a good thing. I think we all want to be literate, but if you can get past that, if you can just open your mind to experiencing nature without all the linguistic encumbrances,
Mhm. Mhm.
this is what I mean by bringing the background forward.
Mhm.
It makes things going on which we're cognitively conditioned to suppress,
Mhm.
but the psychedelics can temporarily disrupt that, what they call
Mhm.
the default mode network. They can disrupt that, and when you move out of that reference frame temporarily, then you realize that the world is not what you think it is,
Mhm.
and you
Mhm.
can look at various situations. I think that's the basis for a lot of the therapeutic, efficacy of psychedelics, as
Mhm.
you can relate to your depression, your addiction, your problems, your PTSD, whatever, from a
Mhm.
from a different perspective, and,
Absolutely.
in some ways, that simply being able to look at that lets you deal with it, lets you in some ways neutralize it or even
Yeah.
cure yourself from it.
And connect to that inner child, and connect to the inherent playfulness and the inherent fun and the inherent magic within inside you as well. Like, everyone is always focused on the healing and helping to relieve trauma and all these things about psychedelics, but there's a whole other part that's so playful and fun and beautiful and exciting. Like, I've had more fun sitting on a mat in the dark by myself than I could possibly have imagined. That's another part of it that cannot be like overlooked too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it's interesting that in the dialogue about psychedelics, it always has to be about healing, and that's the function. All that's important, but remember, the word recreation, if you dissect it, is recreation. So there's a lot to be said for recreational use because it's renewing, it's refreshing.
Love that.
And,
Love that.
there's nothing wrong with, recreational use. There's nothing wrong with fun, although,
Mhm.
we're I think it's, again, part of this Judeo-Christian heritage that we're
No,
not
yeah,
supposed to
no.
have fun. Fun is
Mhm.
somehow,
Bad.
forbidden. So,
Can't
yeah.
have fun.
No fun.
No fun allowed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Well, this has been a good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. And just to close, I just wanted to say, with all of the buzz around psychedelics right now and the so-called psychedelic renaissance, coupled with the fact that like we have this wave of tyranny right now that's mind-boggling. I really feel like the message of this movie is really relevant right now.
could not be more timely,
Mm,
actually.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, if anyone wants more information, again, the website is thefaerierings.com, which is TheFaerierings, thefaerierings.com. There's
Yeah.
lots of really cool concept art on there. You can watch the Cannabis Fairy video. And if you do want to contact me, there's a contact form on there. I would be happy to hear from anyone, even if you don't have $1 million and you just want to say, this is cool. I would love to hear from you.
Well, absolutely. Of course, we'll put all those links on our website for this podcast episode, and hopefully it'll attract some support and interest. And I have the feeling, Zina, that you got the energy and you've got the connections, and I think this thing is going to manifest. And
May it be so.
appreciate your sharing the concept and the idea with us, with our audience, and I hope you'll come back in a few months and let us know how it's going.
Absolutely. Dennis, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure and delight. Thank you so much for having me on.
Likewise, all the best to you and
Thank you. Thank you.
colleagues. I know it's a team effort. These things all
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone out there in internet land for listening.
you're doing the right things. I know all the best.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.